rock and roll author Mitch Myers.
Greetings, Chicago.
From the United Kingdom, Colin Blunstone, you guys. He needs no introduction.
Thanks for coming out. Everyone had a good time at the documentary screening. Can you believe you're here with Colin Blunstone and Robert, the filmmaker?
Thanks, Mitch.
Let's get going here. I think this is fantastic because it's different and it's unique. It's not just a screening, it's not just a concert. Q&A is a bonus for sure. But Robert Schwartzman put together something of a road show with Colin, and it's been like something that we've already seen growing. I know you've only been doing it for a few dates thus far. But if you could tell us a little bit about how that came about, where that idea came from, and because it's a little different than just showing the movie, as you had said earlier when you introduced everybody.
Totally, yeah. Thank you, Mitch, for the question.
Oh, come on.
That was a great question, Mitch.
Brian.
Chicago really knows how to do it, man. Yeah, Chicago. So basically, for anyone here who works in the film industry, raise your hand. Anyone here? No. We're not in Hollywood anymore, man. Thank you for coming out.
This is Chicago, man.
So when movies come out, there's something called a theatrical release, where a movie gets seen in a movie theater. And a lot of films are not getting the chance to be seen in movie theaters because it's getting very competitive. To put a movie out theatrically takes a lot of marketing support, and you need theaters to sort of want to program your movie. What happened? We'll talk about the filmmaking politics stuff, but basically, like, a lot of the screens get reserved for like very big studio, big like F1 or Marvel movies sort of dominate screen space. So a lot of independently produced movies, like this movie, was made completely independently, which means that basically it wasn't made by a studio. It was made by a bunch of people coming together with a dream or passion for something, and then we made it happen. So what's really, yes, awesome. Which is cool, I think. Because it's sort of like the way bands make albums, is you get into a studio and you write and you make a record. But so we make movies like we make albums, kind of. But so this movie was actually, we were really lucky because the Zombies movie actually was in theaters for a limited time in May, but those were in select cities. We didn't get to, I don't think we were in Chicago in a theater near you. We were? Oh, amazing. Good, thank you so much. I'm so happy it was here in a theater. But after it's in theaters, a movie just ends up coming out digitally, and then it's just there and we can sit on the couch and watch it. But it felt like this movie, we should take it on a run and put it in music venues, and then if Colin, I'm talking forever here, but if Colin gets, if we could get the band to come out on the road, how special would that be? If we could make it like a one night only thing. So the whole point is that I think more movies should be screened in these environments with these kinds of packages. It's just going to take us to kind of think outside the box when movies are released, because it makes it more special to do this, and it only works with you guys coming out to see these shows. So thank you guys for doing this.
Very nice. I guess I just wanted to add to that, in that when I watched it, and I watched it a bunch of times, and then I listened to Odyssey on repeat and random, and 1 year as well, and I was just so enamored with it. But at the very end, when you came out and played guitar and did the song off of 1 year, it kind of occurred to me that from the beginning of your odyssey of making this film, you guys have become more and more collaborative. And that's kind of unique to a certain extent. I mean, you had a subject and you had an idea to do a film, and you had a collaborative partner in it, and you were very, very careful to make sure that you gave all 5 of the band members their equal due, even the previous bass player, Paul. But you really made sure that we understood that it wasn't just one person or 2 or a brains behind it. And it's so collaborative of an effort, and so then to see it on stage and you guys kind of doing it, it feels like, it's almost like you're watching a band kind of coalesce in real time. and that's kind of different for a filmmaker to do that. And I know that you're prolific in the 21st century as both a musician and a filmmaker. But once again, I think you've done something a little bit different. And I just wondered how you felt, Colin, being like the subject of the documentary, as one of many, but one of the primary ones to be sure, and how that felt at getting to know Robert a little bit and doing this, which I'm sure it couldn't all have been planned in advance. It kind of seemed to evolve over time, if I am correct.
I think it did. If I could say right from the beginning, Robert had conversations with our management company. They're called The Rocks, and that led to a Zoom call with Robert and Rod Argent and myself. And right from the beginning, Rod and I sensed a real empathy with Robert. Robert's a very accomplished musician as well as an accomplished filmmaker, and it makes a world of a difference. He knows how musicians think, and he knows how the music business works. And just from that first Zoom, Rod and I thought, this would just be fantastic. We really, really wanted to do it. The only concern we had was there enough old film from the 60s? You know, people didn't make film like they do now in the 60s, and a lot of what film was taken was destroyed. But Robert's managed to dig up bits of film that I didn't know existed. And when I first saw the film, it was quite a shock for me when I saw some of these things that I'd forgotten about. And I just think he's done a great job. And incidentally, I think we've got to know one another much better because we've been traveling around the country and learning one another's foibles. And we're both quite eccentric. So it just, on a professional level, it's been great working with Robert. But on a personal level, it's been great fun. It's a little bit mad, a little bit crazy, and really, really great fun. We're having a wonderful time.
I just want to say, you know, thinking about a documentary about artists, you're definitely going to inevitably get into some kind of psychology. And you were pretty strong and daring in the regards that you weren't reluctant to get these guys all back in the same room together and to talk a little bit about not just the phenomena of the zombies and the exciting aspects, but also the sad dissolution of it, which didn't seem, you know, I mean, after all that time, I don't know how often you guys got a chance to talk about, remember when we broke up and how I felt or what you were thinking? And the other thing that I thought was astounding was, I'm sure you guys all had bumps on the road, but there was no drama in terms of an elaborate band kicking people out or fighting on stage or throwing things out the window and such. You seem to be rather well-mannered.
Well, we were well-mannered, but slightly crazy.
I am sure.
And, you know, we got up to all the things that bands normally do, but it's never really been, we were never found out, let's put it like that. But we did remain good friends. I mean, one of the things that intrigues me is if Robert gets 4 of the band, sadly our lead guitarist passed away, but if you get 4 of the band in a line and ask 4 zombies the same question, you'll get 4 completely different answers. And I used to think, what moon are these guys living on? They remember it so differently to me. So I think Robert sort of hit it right up the middle and told the story and got very close to the truth of what happened. Because some of these guys remember it so wrong, I can't believe it. It's probably me. It's probably me. But Robert managed to get the story, and you know, it's not easy. It's a 60-year story compressed into an hour and a half. And it's no mean feat to do that. And I've got to say that watching it myself, it was an emotional roller coaster, to say the least, to see your whole life flashing in front of you in this wonderful movie. So thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I was going to add, to speak to the moment at Abbey Road, because the movie started filming in New York City because the guys had just wrapped a Zombies tour. And I met up, I live in Los Angeles, so I met up with them in New York, and we found a stage in Brooklyn to build a set, which was where a lot of those interviews you saw in that white studio space with the couch that we brought in. that, I don't know if anybody picked up on it, but that was modeled after the Hullabaloo She's Not There performance. If you go back and watch, you'll see we extracted elements from that performance to create a setting that somewhat was familiar to something with the zombies. It wasn't just a random couch. But we try to get close. But that's where a lot of our interviews took place. That's where everything started. Because when you're making a documentary, you know, for me, maybe everyone has a different experience, but I think it's important to learn as you go. If you go in thinking you figured it all out, what's there to really learn? It's like sort of like life, really. But if you're open to experiences that teach you something along the way, you gain a perspective, and that shapes the story that you're telling. But we started in a stage, we got most of it on its feet. If I was writing a book about the zombies, I probably had enough information in that one interview to write a whole book with those two guys, with Rod and Colin running it. But we started off with single interviews, and then we brought in the guys together. The hope was to find something in their interacting with each other that was interesting to pick up on a dynamic between them. They were purposefully kept in separate rooms for it's like almost like a reality show, like Couch or something. Like a tell-all, like we brought in, okay, bring in Rod. The hope was there would be something unusual between the way they interacted, some conflict or something, but what was really actually nice was there wasn't a conflict between the guys, which you find in a lot of bands. You find conflict between members. I think it's a really wonderful story that these guys went through all this and they came out the other side maintaining that friendship. I think that's a beautiful story, you know, so I think that's why I think the film has, you know, I just think it's nice to watch a movie that you feel good about. When you leave the room, you feel maybe like lifted in a way, and I think a lot of movies tend to not have that effect. They actually make us feel worse in a way. And we want to escape the world we're sort of living in a way. We want to be reminded that there's good in people and friendships and relationships. So I hope the movie was valuable in that way for the audience. We then went to the UK and we did interviews with the guys in their homes. That's where I met Chris White and Hugh Grundy. Hugh Grundy lives in Spain. He flew in to Abbey Road where we did his interview. But the hope was that if we could get them back in the room that they recorded this magical album, maybe something would happen just being in that room like a fly on the wall. And I think it was a really wonderful, it's a great moment in the movie when they're all together and they all walk in. That's sort of heroic moment. So yeah, that was sort of the intention, was to shoot these conceptual, that opening. We were looking for a pipe organ in a church. And a friend of mine knew of one in Brooklyn, New York, so they gave us access to shoot in this church. The hope was to open the film with Singing the Way I Feel Inside, a cappella, which is how the song was recorded originally. And then Rod on the organ. The funny thing was we set up our cameras and we were ready to go, and Rod couldn't get the sound that he wanted. And it was interesting to see Rod's like mind at work, because like he was almost about to pull the plug. Because he's like, oh, it's just not sounding right. And in my mind, I'm like, well, but we're here, we gotta shoot this. Luckily, we did it, and Colin sang it over and over and over again, which is really hard to do without a microphone, because you can really blow your voice out. But yeah, we opened in the church, shot around New York, went to England, but we got a lot of footage with a little bit of time, which is how the indie filmmaking world works, really.
If I could just say that the opening shot in the big church in New York, we'd only just met, so Rod and I didn't know what we were doing in the church. I thought at one point we'd gone there to have the film blessed. But then it occurred to us what we were doing, and we were stuck up in the organ loft where there's no natural echo at all. I wish we could have. Well, of course, we couldn't have the organ down on the altar because that's where it's designed for acoustic singing. But in the organ loft, it's not. It's dead as a dodo. So it was quite challenging to do that. But anyway, we didn't go there to have it blessed. I now know we went there to sing that song.
You might have been blessed.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I thought it was instructive for a lot of us. You know, we're all in careers in our lives at certain points, and it was so interesting because unlike a lot of bands, it's like your second act was so much later than your first, and that's really unusual. And the story couldn't really be finished until that part was told. And I mean, in the first half, first part, you guys were so young, so very young, and obviously working all the time, and bonding as a result, and getting better. You had prolific and abilities to, really get up there and perform all the time, and you also had very, very talented individuals in the band. I mean, you couldn't have predicted it. Even as Rod was picking you or asking if you want to join it, it seemed so arbitrary as they described it. But Paul was amazing. Rod is a phenomenal keyboardist. And I don't know if you know, but Rod is recovering from a stroke, and he's doing better now.
He's doing fine. I spoke to him this morning. He's really well.
So that's why there's not any zombie shows right now. But the fact that you guys really stuck together as young people, I mean, that must have been a bonding experience, which was very, very different when you regrouped in the 2000s and went right back to that hard work, plugging away, gigging all the time. It wasn't like all the confetti was out. You were doing lots of interviews, smaller venues, smaller magazines and such. And really, even though it wasn't profitable right away, like the first time, you guys saw beyond that, and you were able to kind of provide your own rebirth.
It was like that. Rod and I started playing back together again in 1999. We didn't actually use the name Zombies for about 6 or 7 years because we weren't the Zombies, it's just two of us. But we'd underestimated the interest in the Zombies repertoire, and people were continually asking us to add zombie tunes. And we found after about 6 or 7 years, we were playing a zombie set. So it seemed ridiculous to refuse to use the name Zombies. We talked with the other original members, they gave us their blessing. And so the second incarnation of the Zombies began. But as you said, we started off completely unheralded. We were playing in rooms in the back of pubs. We were just playing for the love of it, literally, and then gradually, through word of mouth, it built and it built and it built, and as you probably may know, in 2019, we were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I'd say it's been about a 25-year victory lap for you guys at this point.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I always thought of the Zombies as a very slowly emerging rock band, and we actually took about 70 years to emerge. And now, sadly, I don't think we'll be playing anymore. That's it. But it was a great ride. I've no regrets. It was all fabulous. And that night at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, in front of 17,000 people, when we got inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it was magical. And of course, it made everything worthwhile.
When we talk about Odyssey and the Oracle a little bit, the question that I have, and you covered so much in the film, and you guys just saw it, so we don't want to waste Colin's time repeating anecdotes, but I do have one question in terms of time of the season and the slow burn that was exhibited, observed by Al Cooper, very articulate and really able to give you guys a boost to Clive Davis when you probably needed it, and a little bit of belief back there. But what if that had been a hit right away?
There are so many what ifs
in
life. The one thing that I've often wondered is, what would the band have done next? If Odyssey and Oracle had been a success at the time, what would the next album have been? I've always been curious, but of course, we'll never know. And I have to say that with it not being a success and us all being penniless, I would never have known the joys of insurance. So, you have to take joy where you can find it. And I would have never worked in the burglary department and all sorts of other wonderful things.
I think it's, I think about the question of like what would have happened next, like what would they have done next? Because Colin's mentioned that a few times. I feel like the guys went on and made such great music following Odyssey and Oracle in separate, even if it was another project, it was still them creating music. Obviously not as the group, but I want to think that the albums they did or the songs they wrote following Odyssey and Oracle are still an extension of the work that we were enjoying from Odyssey on.
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you, and as I
Like
told
even the
Colin-
1 year album.
Right.
Like,
The 1 year album. Let's talk about it.
Because Chris and Rod made that record with you. That is like, I know it's not the Zombies, but it's as close to it as you can get, kind of. So.
Yeah, that's true. It's absolutely
And
true.
the eclecticism that is exhibited there, and the string arrangements and the band arrangements, it felt like this was the direction that you guys were headed. It may not have been the culminative record of a band had it been the Zombies. And we talked a little bit, a couple of the songs from that record were in the Zombies repertoire occasionally, so it wasn't completely foreign. And you had to come back to it after your excursion as Neil, what was your last name?
For a short time, I was Neil MacArthur, for a short time. And I had to answer to Neil, and I never knew if it was a verb or a noun. And so often I would just end up on my knees, because I thought they were asking me to kneel. It was a strange experience. I made 3 singles. The first one was a hit, and that got me back into the music. In the UK, it wasn't a hit in the States. You're far too sensible to be drawn into something like that. It was a hit in the UK, but the second 2, I'm afraid, poor Neil, he didn't do very well on the second 2. So I went back to Colin Blunstone, which is not my stage name. People say, is Colin Blunstone your stage name? Would I pick a name like Colin Blunstone as a stage name? Are you insane?
For the sake of time, and we'll jump ahead 40 years, talk about the 40th anniversary concerts that you gentlemen did, and kind of reforming the band, and how did that come about for you and Rod and Chris and Hugh?
Well, I think in general it came from Chris White, actually, the bass player in the original Zombies, and he said, Odyssey and Oracle has been named as one of the top 100 albums of all time in Rolling Stone, but we've never played most of the songs except in the studio, and we've never played the album all the way through. And so in 2008, it was the 40th anniversary, and Chris said, why don't we play it just once? And it was really funny in a way, because Chris White and Hugh Grundy hadn't played since 1967, and Rod and I were out playing. And we said, well, we ought to get together and just see if they can play, if they can do anything. And so we got together, and Hugh Grundy and Chris White, the guys who hadn't played, they'd rehearsed, practiced over and over again. They were note perfect. And Rod and I, who'd been out playing all the time, hadn't rehearsed, and we were bloody awful. And I was really glad that they had patience with us, the people who were supposed to be out there doing it professionally, and they would still do it with us. We did it in 2008. It grew into 3 concerts rather than 1. And then the next year we did it, and we did it all over the UK. And then we did it all over the States and all over Europe. And actually that went on for about 10 or 12 years. Just once a year, so going out and doing Odyssey and Oracle. So it was wonderful that we eventually got the chance to play this album of mythical proportions in 1967 that we folded just as we finished the album. And as the DJ said, Kenny Everett said, maybe it would have been a better idea if we kept the band together at least until the album was released. But we never did anything in a standard way, and we didn't get to play it until 40 years later. But the show was great, so it was worth it in the end. It was wonderful.
I think, let's give him a hand on that. I think that the record, performing it live really put a punctuation mark on how profound of a record it was. And all the other records that were coming out in 67 and 68, it was of the time, and then you look at it now and it doesn't seem so different or hard to accept or hard to understand, but at the time, people weren't hearing it. I think that it was really probably, in my mind, the thing I observed, you went from being a singles band to an album band in 2 albums. That's it. You guys only made 2 records before you broke up.
Well, one of the things that worries me is that it took 40 years for people to discover Odyssey and Oracle, and I'm making an album right now. Please don't wait 40 years to discover it, because I'll be 120, and I think it'll be a little bit too late, but that's how things work. It's okay.
I think we've covered it, gentlemen, have we not?
Yeah.
Do you want to say some more about the film?
Any random questions in the audience? You yell, first person to yell it out. Oh, did they go back to the Philippines? That's a good question. Did you ever go back to the Philippines?
I want to make you tell the anecdote that you told me, because in the film you see Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda, and Hugh tells the anecdote that there was a command attendance.
I know. Yeah, well, to answer the question, yes, we've been back twice to the Philippines, and it was absolutely wonderful. Hugh Grundy in the film says that we went and met Imelda Marcos, and we actually did a long interview, the band today, on a Zoom with a big newspaper in the UK. And the guy asked me the question about meeting President Marcos. I've got to tell you, we never met President Marcos. I know we never met him. So the guy from a serious newspaper is asking me to describe a meeting which didn't happen. And I said to Hugh, I think, Hugh, this is more your, because he's convinced we met him. I skidded it onto Hugh. But if I could just say one other thing, I did meet Imelda Marcos many, many years later. She came backstage, she was very glamorous, and she was then a congresswoman. She was a political figure in her own right. And the promoter of the show was very keen on her politics. And he said, would you give a shout out in the audience? It was very dark like this. Would you give a shout out in the audience to Congresswoman Marcos, and they can take a bow and the audience will applaud. And Rod didn't want to do it because he was opposed to politics and everything. I had no idea, so I said, okay, I'll do it. So I go out on the stage, and I'm on the edge of the stage like this, but it's really, really dark. And all I can see is all these glamorous people at the front. I sparkle diamonds, sparkly dresses and everything at the front. And so I go, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Congresswoman Marcos. And all the lights come down here. They were the backing singers from the opening band. Marcos was right at the back over there, standing up with no lights. So she didn't bring us any presents afterwards. She promised to bring us presents afterwards, but she didn't, because I got the applause for the backing singers. Not one of my most glorious nights, I'm afraid.
Great. I know we need to wrap, so I just want to thank everybody for being here. And the movie's going to be out on. There's a really good question.
You put out 2 albums. I just want to say what you said in 2 albums is so heartfelt and so poignant and so meaningful even today. I just wanted to thank you for that. There's musical groups that can put out 31 albums, and there's a couple songs, but your music is just so completely amazing. So right to the heart, I just want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. If I could just say, there'll be people who don't like the Zombies and there'll be people that do like the Zombies, but we always gave 100% in the recording studio, and when we played live, we always gave 100%. If there were 2 people in the audience, and it's happened, we played just as hard and as enthusiastically as if there's 20,000. So thank you so much for that. We always gave 100%.
I think that your work ethic from even the very beginning as young lads kind of continued. But yes, they made 2 records, and they are, the ones you're talking about are amazing. But since then, the Zombies have made 4 more. You've made umpteen solo records. And you have a bunch in the hopper, and more are coming out, and there's plans for more Zombies releases. And this is, probably a more exciting time than it's been in a while.
That's right, the story continues. The story continues of the Zombies. There are going to be 4 albums in the next 12 months. You may ask, how can there be 4 albums if we only ever recorded 2? It's part of the mystery of the Zombies. I have no idea.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I just want to let you know the movie will be out everywhere on demand July 22nd, so please tell your friends to check it out. And stream the Zombies all day long, because there's so many great songs to discover, and Colin's solo record, so.
How
Mitch,
about a hand for the most iconic voice in rock, and the prolific filmmaker. Thank you all for coming. What a loyal and great
audience.
audience.
Thank you so much, Chicago.
Making this guy feel really good.
Thank you so much.
He
Thank you.
deserves it.